Hello, my name is Scott Anderson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Product Management and Business Operations at Couchbase. I'm incredibly excited to give you an overview of Couchbase Cloud, our new fully managed database as a service. Today, I'm also joined by Mark Gamble, our Director of Product Marketing. Mark, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, everyone. As Scott mentioned, Director of Product and Solutions Marketing here at Couchbase, and I'm really excited to present with Scott today. I'll be showing a demonstration of Couchbase Cloud and some common use cases, so be sure to stick around for the entire session.
I'm going to provide an overview of Couchbase Cloud. We're incredibly excited that we launched Couchbase Cloud on June 30th of this year with support for AWS. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes giving you an overview of the key critical capabilities of Couchbase Cloud, as well as its key points of differentiation. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to go through 3 different scenarios that would show you as developers how you can take advantage of Couchbase Cloud. And then we'll wrap it up with a few closing comments. So, Couchbase Cloud, it's first and foremost a fully managed NoSQL database as a service. And what does that mean from a capabilities perspective? We fully manage the deployment of Couchbase Server. It's an automated deployment. You pick the instances that you want to run Couchbase Server on, and we'll go ahead and deploy that specific configuration of Couchbase, including the various services that you want to utilize that are native within Couchbase Server. We provide robust management capabilities, the ability to scale your environment, either scaling out or scaling up, automatic failure recovery, as well as upgrades and patching of the entire solution that we provide to our customers. We provide unified monitoring and alerting. View this as really a single pane of glass that gives you visibility into all the clusters that are under management by Couchbase Cloud. Coming later this year, we'll extend our support to multi-cloud deployments by certifying and being supported for Azure. So by the end of this year, as we currently support AWS, we'll be adding support for Azure, and then we'll be looking at adding GCP sometime next year. Another really unique capability that we provide with Couchbase Cloud is the ability to replicate data between self-managed clusters, be them on-prem or in the cloud, into Couchbase Cloud, and having a persistent bidirectional replication link between those 2 clusters. And finally, we provide end-to-end in-VP security. Data is secured and encrypted in flight as well as at rest. And I'll go through into a few more details about the importance of our in-VPC deployment model. From an offerings perspective, we have 3 offerings today. We have a free trial that allows anyone to go ahead and evaluate Couchbase Cloud. It runs for 30 days. You can select your cluster, deploy, get very familiar with the service, and do your full evaluation of the capabilities of Couchbase Server as well as Couchbase Cloud. We have another offering, Developer Pro, which is a paid offering, which is targeted for development and test use cases, and then Enterprise, which is the offering that we target for production use cases. The critical difference between Developer Pro and Enterprise really comes down to the support response SLA. The capabilities are the same in terms of the features and functionality we provide in the service, but our support SLA is differentiated between Developer Pro as well as Enterprise. We support all the common use cases of Couchbase Server, be it catalog and inventory management, profile and session management, customer 360, and digital transformation, another way of referring to a caching use case that we're able to provide. So why Couchbase Cloud? We've really focused on 3 critical elements. One is empowering the developer, making it easy for them to get access to Couchbase in a NoSQL database. Second, faster. How can you get up and running more quickly? How can you scale based off of demand for your application and user growth of that application? And finally, about streamlining operations and costs and providing a more cost-effective solution than the competition. So from an empowering developer perspective, the goal here is to make it easy to get up and running with a Couchbase cluster, be able to invite developers so you co-develop leveraging Couchbase Server as well as our underlying SDKs. And the goal here is to get you up and running as quickly as possible. The second is really about business agility. So this is having flexibility where you can start with a single node or maybe a 3-node cluster and be able to scale that on demand as you're going through a natural dev, test, staging, prod cycle, or potentially to deal with seasonal spikes of usage of your application. And we have a very simple project cluster user management, making it incredibly easy for you to get visibility into not only your clusters and the associated projects, but all the users who have access to that. And finally, from an operations and from a cost perspective, we've tried to reduce or eliminate the need for some third-party software by providing configuration management, monitoring software, all part of the Couchbase Cloud solution. We have very flexible offerings, as I spoke about before, with Developer Pro and Enterprise that allows you to cost optimize your solution based off of your particular use case. And finally, one of the unique things about Couchbase Cloud is when you purchase Couchbase Cloud, you're purchasing the right to use our service, so the underlying Couchbase Server, as well as all the management capabilities that we provide with Couchbase Server. What is separate and distinct here is the underlying infrastructure of the service that you're utilizing where Couchbase Server is deployed within your VPC. That is paid by you directly to your cloud service provider, which allows you to leverage things like reserved instance pricing that can dramatically reduce the cost of your infrastructure that you're using to run Couchbase Server. So, what are the core differentiators of Couchbase Cloud? Well, first and foremost, it starts with Couchbase Server. And the value that we're bringing from a Couchbase Cloud perspective is really about the management of that environment. So we've leveraged our last 10 years of best practices that we've developed as an organization to make sure that when we deploy Couchbase Server, it's configured, monitored, and set up to give you the ultimate experience of using Couchbase. The second critical point that I mentioned before is in VPC deployment. What this means is we have two segments of Couchbase Cloud. One is our control plane, which is the user interface that Mark will show you later, where you interact, you select the clusters that you want to deploy, you configure them, and you hit the go button, and we deploy that on your behalf. But where we deploy that is actually within your virtual private cloud or in Azure when that becomes available within your VNet. That means that the data is always under your control and is in your cloud environment itself. The third point is that single console to manage multi-cluster deployments. This is giving you visibility across regions within a single cloud, or when we launch our support for Azure and eventually GCP, a single console to see all of your deployments, irrespective of public cloud that you're deployed in. The next point is really about XDCR, our world-class replication technology. This technology allows you to replicate data to and from Couchbase Cloud to self-managed clusters. This can be utilized for things like live migration, the ability to replicate data from a self-managed cluster into Couchbase Cloud to get up running quickly, or potentially to create just a dev environment. The other use case it opens up is disaster recovery. You can create a persistent replication link between your self-managed clusters and your clusters managed by Couchbase Cloud. So you could elect to, for instance, run your production deployment of Couchbase in a self-managed cluster, but you may not want to have a DR site. And what you could do is spin up a DR cluster within Couchbase Cloud and maintain that link leveraging XDCR to replicate data from your prod system into your DR cluster itself. As I mentioned before, we've really focused on licensing and total cost of ownership. So we've tried to have very simple licensing where you're paying per instance per hour. And I'll speak a little bit more about the different purchasing options that you have, either on demand or leveraging what we call Couchbase Cloud credits. There's also another session that you may have seen already that goes through a pretty comprehensive TCO analysis of Couchbase Cloud versus a couple of our competitors. And I strongly encourage you to review that presentation. So we try to make this really, really simple. So how do you get started with Couchbase Cloud? Well, once you've requested a trial and you've given an activation code, it's very simple. You go ahead and create a Couchbase Cloud account. We send you an email, you click on that link, and then you get into your cloud environment. From there, you pick your cloud, what cloud you want to deploy in. Today it's AWS, then we'll be adding Azure later this year, and then GCP. And then you decide what database cluster that you want to spin up. We've created quick start templates, some that are for KV optimized or query optimized or analytics optimized clusters, as well as the ability to create custom configurations of your cluster in terms of the number of nodes, the specific instances that you'll be using for each one of those, as well as what services of Couchbase Server will be deployed on each node. This allows you to take advantage of capabilities like multidimensional scaling. So how do you get started? How do you get your data into Couchbase Cloud? There are a number of easy ways. We have sample data that is already up and running that you can go ahead and take advantage of, our beer sample and our travel sample and so forth. You can also import your JSON documents directly into Couchbase Cloud, or you can do an online migration, as I mentioned before, using XDCR to replicate data from an on-premise or self-managed cluster into Couchbase Cloud. You can also export data using our backup manager from an existing cluster and then import that data directly into your cluster in Couchbase Cloud. So from a purchasing perspective, it's pretty simple. We have an on-demand option or what we call a credit option. In the on-demand scenario, you pay hourly based off of your actual usage, which is based off of each EC2 instance or compute instance that you're using underlying the Couchbase Server cluster. And we bill monthly in arrears, and we can do that directly via Couchbase or via the AWS Marketplace today, and eventually the Azure and GCP marketplaces as those become available. We also have a credit model. This allows you to pre-purchase credits for usage within Couchbase Cloud. You get an initial discount of 20% for purchasing those credits, and additional volume discounts are available based off of the volume of credits that you purchase. Those credits expire within a 12-month period, but you have flexible usage throughout that term. So in 1 month, you could use 1,000 credits. The next month, you could use 3,000. You could scale back down to 500. You could have relatively consistent usage throughout the year, except for a seasonal spike. So you get a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of how you use those credits within that 1-year time period overall. So we try to optimize this to allow customers, if they want to get started, want to test out the system, they can do that via the on-demand. As they get to a certain scale, the credit option is a much more cost-effective way to purchase Couchbase Cloud. So with that being said, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you to give a great demonstration of Couchbase Cloud.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. So what I'll do today is sort of depict 3 very common use cases. First, when you first get set up with your Couchbase Cloud account, you'll be working in the Couchbase Cloud console. That's that single pane of glass for your Couchbase clusters. And I'll show you just how easy it is, and also how rich it is with resources, especially for the developer, to be able to help your development effort. And then we'll move into an application development scenario, a couple of very straightforward examples that I think will help illustrate the speed with which you can get up and running with Couchbase powering the back end of your applications. And then we'll go into a third use case, and that's leveraging that data that's out on Couchbase Cloud for measurement and analysis. So we'll go into a business intelligence scenario, and I'll show you how you can actually connect up your reporting with Couchbase Cloud and to be able to measure it and visualize it. So with that, let's jump right in. All right, so we're currently looking at the Couchbase Cloud console. It's that, again, single pane of glass for all your Couchbase clusters. This is where you control all aspects of your Couchbase Cloud account and clusters. It's the data, the users, projects, activity, billing, all in one single place. And a really nice thing here is that developers can create sandboxes for development projects and create teams with specific access. So it's really a boon to development, as well as being such a powerful enterprise class backend for your applications. So I have the Developer Pro configuration of Couchbase Cloud, and I've added 2 clusters to date. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. So 2 clusters running, and one of the things that I want to make sure is that you get a hold of the sample databases that Scott talked about. This is going to make your development and your acclimation, if you will, to the Couchbase Cloud environment really quick and really easy. So in this case, I have on one of my clusters 3 nodes and 3 buckets. If we take a look at those buckets, these are those sample databases. It's really easy to bring this in as well as bring in your own data. So there are built-in tools that help with this. For example, the ability, as Scott mentioned, to import your own data, either JSON or CSV. And this is also where you go and get that sample data. So you can very easily import the travel sample, the beer sample, and the game sim sample. And it comes in replete with all of its indices so that you can start working with the information right away. One of the main reasons that Couchbase is such a boon to developer productivity is because of this notion of being able to query the information leveraging an inherent skill set for any developer, that is SQL. You can use plain garden variety SQL to query the data here, even though the data is held in JSON documents. So the query language is called N1QL. We also call it Nickel. And it is based on SQL and allows you to leverage that SQL knowledge. So for example, here I have a sample query against our beer sample database. And as you can see, the constructs are exactly the same as any SQL statement. We have select star from beer sample. That's analogous to our database instance. That's our bucket. And then where the type equals brewery, this is a document type, and that's analogous to a table, if you will. And I set some criteria for limiting our return, and I'll just go ahead and run that. And as you can see, it brings back that data really quickly. And you can look at it either as JSON. It's kind of helpful also to be able to see it in a tabular format. So let's actually take a look at another construct with Nickel. I'll go into a bit more of a sophisticated query, if you will. So here I've got a query that I'll use an ANSI join in, because this is another unique with Couchbase. Nickel has this ability to join across document types, something not so easy with other JSON databases. So in the beer sample bucket, I've got this query that I'll use an ANSI join to list beer names, one document type, and breweries, another document type, that are in a given state. So I'll go ahead and run that. And the ability to join in Nickel statements allows you to create an input object by combining two or more source objects. And joins are typically really difficult with JSON and other technologies, but not when you use Nickel. So again, leveraging that existing expertise and existing constructs of SQL to work with JSON data. So here we have our result that's met both of those criteria. And again, that query was joined across two documents. So Nickel is that #1 reason that customers choose Couchbase over the competition, is they can leverage their existing expertise to work with the data. Everybody knows SQL. So now let's move over to my other cluster and take a look at another feature. I've loaded up the travel sample data in this particular case. And we also have the search service here. So this is a full text search capability. So this means that I can use full text search against my bucket to enable search in my applications. There's no need to bolt on search technology like Solr or Elasticsearch. FTS is another one of those things built right into Couchbase. So let's take a look at our full text search, and we have an existing index. So here I was able to quickly index my hotel type bucket. So in this case, we're going into our hotels, and we've got the general name. The mappings here are for the documents of type hotel. So what we're doing with this very simple search index is scouring every aspect of the hotel's document and being able to search every nook and cranny of the data for anything matching our search criteria. But if you want to be more specific, you can actually map down to a child and even a child field. So you can make it specific to an individual field. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and run it against the entirety of hotel document types. So this way, anybody searching for Wi-Fi or bed and breakfast will be able to find these kind of things. So once you set it, it's really easy then to test it also within Couchbase Cloud, because we've built in the search index tester, if you will. So here, let's search for a given term. So course, anybody listing bed in the context of bed and breakfast or comfortable beds, these are all of the matches, matching hotels. How about Wi-Fi? And again, goes through and pulls back all of those matches. So we were able to very quickly leverage, set up this index, and I'll show you what it looks like to leverage it in an application on the other end through a user experience in just a moment. So the Couchbase Cloud single pane of glass, again, makes it super, super easy to work with and test out your queries, understand the data, set up your full text search. But of course, our applications won't be using this Couchbase Cloud console because they talk to Couchbase programmatically. So at this point now, let's dive into some of our use case examples. So first I'll start off with a very simple example here that is leveraging one of our Node.js SDKs or our Node.js SDK sample application. So what you can do with this sample application essentially is get a sense for how the Node.js SDK works, as well as how to wire it up to your Couchbase cluster. So what I've done is taken the code straight out of the SDK. This is sort of a hello world app for Node, and essentially built it out. Very simple and straightforward. But one of the things that we do here is connect to our Couchbase cluster. So this is where you actually grab an endpoint from within your Couchbase account, and then you put in your username and password. It really is that easy and that straightforward. So very powerful. And what we're doing as we take a look at the code, pretty straightforward. We're going into the bucket beer sample. And within that bucket, we're going to input a new document. We're going to upload or upsert some new data. So I'm going to put in a new document for Couchbase Brewery. This is a brewery that I wish existed, and we'll show you some clever things once we're able to upload that. So we're uploading Couchbase Brewery into our database. So first I'll go back to the database just to show you that it doesn't already exist because we're going to add it programmatically. So I'll go into my documents, and these are all of the documents relative to the beer sample in this case. And I'll say where name equals Couchbase Brewery. And of course, the document doesn't exist. That's because we're going to actually upload it or manipulate the information here live in real time from our application. So I'll pop back over to the application, and we're going to run node index.js. And it runs. We get back confirmation that the upsert has happened. Let's go back into Couchbase Cloud and search for that document again. And there it is. So simple, straightforward, but very powerful. We were able to close the loop between my local application and Couchbase Cloud. We're now leveraging that application to manipulate the data. So we've added some new data. So in this case, now we've got some data to work with, but let's go into and get a bit more sophisticated. You recall that we had set up a hotel's full text search index. So let's see how another sample application can easily leverage it for a search feature. So I'm now inside our sample application for the Node.js SDK. And in this particular document, we're doing, once again, similarly, connecting to our Couchbase Cloud cluster and passing in our username and our password. And where we actually interact with the full text search is right here. So we are running a search query for any documents of type hotel. We're passing in search criteria and going through every field within those particular documents, and ultimately queuing up all of the matches and returning back to the application the type, country, city, state, address, name, and description of hotels that actually map that. So this is, again, a sample application from our Node.js SDK page. So you'll be able to actually do this at home. So let's in fact go and take a look at what that looks like. So the CB Travel application is that Node.js sample app. It does a lot more than just search, but I think search is one of the more compelling reasons to install this. I've wired it up, as we saw, back to my Couchbase Cloud account. So now let's go ahead and look for hotels with Wi-Fi in San Francisco. It goes through and finds those matches instantly and returns them. And again, remember that it's going through the entirety of each and every hotel document to find these matches. So it's going far beyond what you could do with conditional operators, for example, in your queries, and actually finding anything even with fuzzy matches. So very, very powerful and super easy to plug in to your applications. All right, so next let's switch to another use case, and that's now we have data within our Couchbase Cloud account. Let's actually visualize it. Let's start to measure it and visualize it. So what I'll do now is hop over into Power BI. So Power BI, in this case, I'm using, but you can use Click or Tableau, any of your BI tools of choice. And one of the things we were able to do was leverage the CData ODBC driver. So let's take a look at what that looks like real quick. So what they offer is a Couchbase Cloud connector, essentially a generic Couchbase connector that we can then wire directly up to our Couchbase Cloud account. So once you put in those properties, you're then able to run queries using simple select statements and then visualize it, just as you would with a BI tool against any relational data source. So our use case here has to do with visualizing breweries in our beer sample database and put them onto a map. So in fact, I've actually put those breweries onto a map and zoomed into my local area. I happen to live in beautiful Carmel by the sea. And I imagined that Couchbase Brewery might be right around the corner from my house. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to actually visualize that and plop it on the map, and maybe we can all go there after the conference. So what I'll do now is first we'll refresh the data, and then I'll zoom back in. So right now what we're doing is going through the CData driver, connecting into my Couchbase Cloud account, bringing back the updated information, and then ultimately re-rendering the map. So I'll just zoom in directly to the same area. And I think I see a new brewery right in my neighborhood, Couchbase Brewery. So that was extremely easy. We'll take a look at the query behind the scenes just to show you that it's leveraging, again, just plain garden variety SQL. So let's bring up the advanced editor real quickly just to show you that. So when you connect up your Power BI to Couchbase Cloud, all you have to do is give it this query and it does the rest. So it's a simple select where I'm grabbing the latitude, longitude, and name for every brewery in the beer sample database. So again, very straightforward, super easy. Couchbase Cloud plays nice with business intelligence tools. So hopefully that was a good peek at the power of Couchbase Cloud and its ability to really power your applications, as well as power analytics, power analysis to understand the data and visualize it. And again, for setting up all of that, it's very easy to just go into the Couchbase Cloud console, try all of those great resources that are at your disposal. For example, the query editor, the ability to open and edit documents, import your own data, all in one place. Super, super powerful. So with that, let's go back into slides. And just one final point I want to make. Hope you enjoyed the short demonstration. I'll be diving in deeper in my own session on day 2 of the conference of how we built it and how it came together so that you can build the same thing. But I want to reiterate, first and foremost, Nickel is the #1 reason that developers choose Couchbase over the competition. because it allows them to use SQL skills that they already possess. It simplifies app development, and it also makes migration from relational databases much easier than with other NoSQL vendors. And don't take our word for it. As you can see in this slide, in a recent Tech Validate survey, Couchbase customers listed Nickel as the most important feature when evaluating Couchbase versus MongoDB. So sign up for Couchbase Cloud and see for yourself how easy it is. With that, I'll turn it back over to Scott to take us through the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for that great demonstration of the power of Couchbase Server, as well as how easy to use in the context of Couchbase Cloud. So wanted to give a little bit of the feedback that we've gotten from our customers. As being a developer and building an application, we do that because we want to improve people's lives. We want to get great reaction and validation for what we've built. Here's a couple of quotes, but they really point to increased performance, reduced cost, increased developer productivity, the ability to deploy Couchbase Cloud so simply. And that's really what we've been striving for the last year and a half as we build Couchbase Cloud. Make it an incredibly intuitive control plane for developers and ops teams to be able to use and interact with, give them the performance that they expect from Couchbase Server, and to be able to deliver that with a number of guarantees, taking away some of the challenges of upgrades and failure recovery and so forth, and deliver a very robust solution to our customers. So, kind of as a summary, Couchbase Cloud first and foremost starts with Couchbase Server, and what we've brought is our expertise on how to manage that system, configure, deploy it, upgrade it, do backup and recovery, failure recovery, give you all the stats and information that you need about the health of Couchbase Server. Provide superior performance, leveraging our in-memory capability with Couchbase Server to provide terrific performance not only for KV, but for query, for full text search, analytic use cases, and so forth. We've delivered this with an NVPC architecture that ensures that the data remains within your cloud account and enhances the security of that data. We provide complete cluster control. So your ability from the control plane to be able to interact with the cluster, make changes to the deployment, the services, scale that, and so forth. Global deployment, the ability to deploy these in regions across the world. And finally, delivering that with an exceptional total cost of ownership. When we look at the value of Couchbase Server, the benefits of the management capabilities that we bring with Couchbase Cloud, and finally coupled with the flexibility to procure and pay directly to your cloud service provider for the underlying infrastructure, has led, and you'll see in a later presentation during the Connect show, we have a TCO analysis that we've done. We've got a white paper that we're developing and a TCO calculator. So I strongly encourage you to look out for that session that's being led by Jeff Morris. With that being said, I would like to thank you for your time today. If you'd like to try out Couchbase Cloud, please go to couchbase.com/products/cloud. There's a ton of information there. There's some getting started videos, and you can register for a free trial at that page. So thank you once again for your time. Look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Scott. And just by way of reminder, I want to make sure everybody does catch the other Couchbase Cloud sessions going on day 2 and day 3. Day 2, how to get started with Couchbase Cloud. This is the one I mentioned earlier. I'll be walking through how we actually created that demonstration. Then my colleague, Tony Burton, will go through how Facet Digital realized tremendous benefit and an amazing efficiency boost for their application through Couchbase Cloud. And then Scott already mentioned, Jeff will be talking about Couchbase Cloud by the numbers, where you'll understand the immense scale and efficiency that you can bring to bear, especially as compared to other vendors. Then finally on day 3, we'll hear from Andrea Vasco, a senior solutions engineer at Couchbase, talk about how to avoid cloud lock-in by leveraging Couchbase Cloud and the NVPC deployment. So don't miss these sessions. And with that, I share Scott's thanks for your joining us, and enjoy the rest of the conference.